AIDA for taking the promotion my girlfriend wanted her new alpha boyfriend to get at work? After 5 years together, my girlfriend told me she was no longer attracted to me and needed an alpha. The problem was, she told this to the wrong colleague at the company. When the official announcement came out, and she discovered I was the new boss, her world came crashing down. I'm just not attracted to you anymore, Nathan, Brooke said, looking at me with a sort of clinical pity. She then added, I need a real alpha, someone who takes charge, a true leader. The insult was so direct, so condescending, that I did not feel anger at first, just clarity. I have always been a quiet person. I have never been the loudest one in the room. I do not boast. I do not feel the need to dominate conversations. I lead by example, with competence. I solve problems. I build things that work. I always thought she understood and valued that in me. I was clearly mistaken. To her, my quiet confidence looked like weakness. I did not argue. I did not defend myself. I just looked at her and waited for the next blow, because I knew there was more. She took my silence as an invitation to continue. She then confessed she had been getting close to someone else. A guy from our company, Tyler. For context, Brooke, Tyler, and I all work at the same large tech corporation. I am the senior systems architect. I design the back-end infrastructure for our most complex cloud computing projects. Brooke is a project manager, so we work in adjacent departments. And Tyler is a senior sales strategist. He is exactly the type of man that comes to mind when someone uses the word alpha without irony. He is loud, overconfident, uses buzzwords, and gives presentations full of charm. He is all charisma, but in terms of substance, I always found him pretty questionable. Brooke went on praising Tyler's ambition, his unstoppable drive, and then she revealed the core of it. 2 months ago, a position for Director of Strategic Integration had opened up at the company. It was a huge step up, a leadership role meant to bridge the technical, project management, and sales departments. The new director would, in effect, be the boss of all 3 departments. Brooke, with a smug sense of excitement, told me that Tyler was the frontrunner. She admitted that she had been helping him by preparing his proposals, feeding him inside information from the project management side to make him stand out even more. She was completely invested in his success. She saw his promotion as the catalyst that would turn them into the office's new power couple. While she unloaded all of this, I just sat there, listening. When she finally finished, after making it perfectly clear why I was no longer enough for her, I looked at her calmly and said, I understand. She seemed surprised by my lack of reaction, but interpreted it as acceptance. She said she would need a week or 2 to find another place to live. I just nodded. What Brooke did not know was that while she and Tyler were plotting his ascent, upper management already had doubts about him. They saw what I saw, all flash and little substance. Tyler's strategies looked great on a PowerPoint slide, but they often ignored critical technical limitations that my team would have to scramble to fix later. That is why, about a month ago, the senior vice president, Adrian, had called me indiscreetly. He said that although I was not the obvious choice from a sales perspective, I was the only candidate who truly understood how all the pieces of the company fit together. He said they needed a leader who could deliver results, not just promises, and he offered me the director position. At the time, I hesitated. I like the hands-on work. I am an architect, a builder. I was not sure I wanted to dive into the politics and bureaucracy of upper management. I asked for time to think about it. I did not mention it to Brooke because our relationship was already on shaky ground, and I did not want to mix our professional and personal lives any further. That caution of mine, thinking logically before deciding, was exactly what she saw as a lack of ambition. But after her speech, after she called me weak and paraded her new alpha, all my hesitation vanished. To refuse the promotion now would be to validate her distorted narrative. Accepting it was the only possible answer. It was not about my career anymore. It was about self-respect. The next morning, I walked into Adrian's office. He looked up, surprised to see me. "What's on your mind, Nathan?" he asked. I replied, "I've thought about your offer. If it's still on the table, I accept." A huge smile of relief spread across his face. "That's the best news I've heard all month," he said, shaking my hand firmly. "We were hoping you'd come around. The official announcement will be emailed to the entire company on Monday morning. Welcome aboard, Director." I spent the rest of the day in a focused calm. When I got home, Brooke was already there, sorting some of her things. She was practically buzzing. She said she was having a celebratory dinner with Tyler on Monday night after the big announcement. She even had the audacity to pat me on the shoulder and say, "Don't worry, Nathan. When he's director, he'll make sure you get assigned to the most important projects. He really values your technical skills." I looked at her and just nodded. "That's considerate of you," I replied. The weekend passed in silence. I moved her things into the guest room. She thought it was just because I needed space. She was completely oblivious to the email that would hit every employee's inbox at 9 o'clock on Monday morning. She believed she was hitching her wagon to a rising star. She had no idea she was about to meet her new boss. Update 1. Monday morning arrived with a strange sense of inevitability. The air at home was heavy, filled with a tense, uncomfortable silence. Brooke, however, seemed to be floating on a cloud of smug self-satisfaction. She was more talkative than she had been in months, chattering on about the celebration dinner she and Tyler had planned for that night. As we were getting ready for work, she leaned against the bathroom doorframe, watching me shave, and decided to offer some unsolicited advice. "You know, Nathan," she began, her tone laced with faux concern, "you're a great architect, probably the best in the company, but you just don't have that executive presence. You should learn from Tyler. Watch how he commands a room. It could help you in the future." I rinsed my razor, wiped my face, and met her eyes in the mirror. "I'll keep that in mind," I replied. We drove to work in separate cars, a habit we had already adopted weeks earlier as the distance between us grew. I got to my desk at 8:30, sorted some old files, and prepared for the day. Brooke was at her workstation, animatedly on the phone, no doubt with Tyler. At exactly 9 o'clock in the morning, an email notification popped up on the screen. It popped up on everyone's screen. The subject line was simple: Announcement, New Director of Strategic Integration. I did not need to open it. I already knew what it said. Instead, I watched Brooke. I saw her click open the email, her face lit with triumphant expectation. Then, I saw her eyes scan the first line, and I watched as every trace of color drained from her face in seconds. She went from tan and confident to ashen, almost sick. Her mouth fell slightly open. She blinked. She reread it, and then reread it again. From where I sat, I could see her hands begin to tremble. She slowly lifted her head until her eyes met mine across the open plan office. I did not smile. I did not celebrate. I just held her gaze with a perfectly neutral expression. The simple sight of me, calm and already focused on my work, seemed to break her trance. Brooke shot up from her chair and marched over to my desk, vibrating with rage. Heads turned to watch the scene unfold. She stopped in front of me, her fists clenched. "What is this?" she hissed, her voice low and shaky. "This is some kind of sick joke, right? How did you get this? Did you steal it from him?" Her voice was rising with each word, drawing more attention. People were now openly staring. This was the moment. The new dynamic would be set right here. I stood up slowly. I was a few inches taller than her. I spoke quietly, forcing her to lean in to hear, a subtle power move. "Brooke," I said calmly, "this is neither the time nor the place for this conversation. My door will always be open, but I expect you to conduct yourself professionally. We have a project status meeting scheduled for 10 o'clock. I will meet you in the conference room. We can discuss your concerns about the project pipeline then." The color returned to her face in a flush of fury, but words failed her. Hours ago, she saw me as the weak, disposable man. Now, she was being reprimanded like a subordinate by her new boss. She stood there for a few seconds, sputtering, until she realized everyone was watching her unprofessional outburst. She spun on her heel and stalked back to her desk under the gaze of the entire floor. Across the building, I could only imagine the meltdown Tyler was probably having. His entire strategy, his whole identity at the company, revolved around the image of being the next in line. Now he had not just lost the promotion, he had lost it to me. That night, the scene at home was exactly as I expected. Brooke was waiting for me as soon as I walked in. She accused me of being manipulative, vengeful, a backstabbing snake. She said I had planned the whole thing to humiliate her. I let her vent until she wore herself out. When silence finally fell, I spoke. "I didn't do this because of you, Brooke. I did this for me. You made it very clear what you value in a partner. You said you wanted an alpha, a leader, someone who takes charge. You made your choice based on your perception of strength. It seems you just bet on the wrong horse. I walked past her and went to the kitchen for a glass of water. With my back to her, I continued, "But you're right about one thing. The dynamic has changed. It's no longer appropriate for you to live here. This is my house. You need to find another place to stay. You have 1 week." The fight went out of her eyes, replaced by a sudden horror. Reality hit her all at once. Her alpha had failed. The power couple dream had collapsed, and now even the roof over her head was slipping away. The plan did not just fail. It imploded in the most spectacular way possible. Update 2. It has been 2 weeks since my promotion, and the fallout has been both predictable and, in a way, satisfying. The first week was about establishing my authority, and Brooke and Tyler did not make it easy, but their attempts to undermine me only ended up further cementing my position. My first official act as director was to call a meeting with the heads of all departments now under my supervision. That, of course, included Brooke, representing the project management team, and Tyler, representing sales strategy. The goal was to review the entire project pipeline to identify risks and opportunities. Tyler walked into the room with his usual swagger, but you could tell it was brittle. He was trying to act like nothing had changed. Brooke, on the other hand, sat silently at the far end of the table, avoiding my gaze. The main topic of the meeting was a major initiative Tyler had been championing for months. It was his baby, the cornerstone of his bid for the director position. Brooke had been its biggest advocate, ensuring project managers prioritized this initiative. When it was Tyler's turn to present, he put on his usual show, a presentation filled with buzzwords and optimistic projections. When he finished, he looked around, expecting applause. Instead, I spoke. "Thank you, Tyler," I said calmly. "The projections are certainly ambitious. However, I spent the weekend reviewing the architecture required to support this strategy. Could you please go back to slide 17, where you outlined the data integration process?" He fumbled with the remote, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. He brought the slide up. "As I see it," I continued, now addressing the whole room, "your strategy relies on real-time data synchronization between our legacy inventory system and the new cloud analytics platform. However, the legacy system's API has a hard query limit of 1,000 requests per hour. Your plan, as outlined here, would require a minimum of 10,000 requests per hour during peak times. The system, as it stands today, cannot support that. It will fail." I was not aggressive. I just stated facts, showed the data, and exposed the central flaw in his entire strategy, a flaw that anyone with deep technical knowledge would have spotted, but that he, in his world of sales pitches, had simply ignored. The room fell silent. Tyler's face turned red. He had no answer. He stammered something about technical consultants who had assured him it would work. "Then your consultants were wrong," I replied simply. "We need to shelve this initiative until a full architectural review is completed. I want a viable plan on my desk in 2 weeks, not a PowerPoint. Brooke, have your team pull all resources from this project and reassign them to the Phoenix project, effective immediately." Brooke just nodded, her face pale. She had to publicly swallow the dismantling of the project she had championed so fiercely, the project that was supposed to be her and Tyler's springboard to the top. In 10 minutes, I had exposed Tyler's incompetence and reasserted control over the company's direction, simply by doing my job. Their next move was to try to rally support. Brooke started complaining to coworkers, especially those she used to have lunch with, implying that I was creating a hostile work environment, using my new position to punish her for our breakup. It backfired spectacularly. People at the company, especially the technical staff, value competence above all else. They had all seen Tyler's flashy presentations and suffered the consequences of his flawed plans. They respected my work. They saw me shut down a bad project and save the company millions. They did not see a vengeful ex-boyfriend. They saw a competent leader cleaning house. Brooke's complaints just made her look petty and unprofessional. Then came the dirtiest shot. Defeated professionally, they decided to try to attack my reputation. One of my old projects, a complex software upgrade I had personally designed, was in its final implementation phase. One night last week, someone went into the system and altered a critical line of code. It was a subtle change, one that would not cause an immediate crash but would lead to a severe data corruption issue about a week down the line. It was designed to look like I had left a time bomb in the system before my promotion. A direct attempt to make me look incompetent to the board was a desperate and poorly executed move. The next morning, during a routine check, I immediately spotted the anomaly in the code. It was not my work. The logic was sloppy. I did not panic or mention it to anyone right away. I went straight to the company's cybersecurity logs. Every change, every login, is timestamped and sourced. It took me less than an hour to find it. The unauthorized change had been made at 10:47 p.m. the previous night. It was logged under temporary administrative credentials, and the IP address of the login traced directly to a workstation on the fourth floor, Tyler's workstation. I now had concrete, irrefutable proof of direct corporate sabotage. He was not just incompetent, he was a liability, and I had him dead to rights. Final update. It has been 3 months since my promotion, and the final pieces of this chapter have finally fallen into place. The story of Tyler and Brooke at our company is officially over. After discovering the evidence of sabotage, I did not confront Tyler or Brooke directly. That would have been messy and unprofessional. Instead, I acted like the director they claimed I was not. I gathered all the evidence. The cybersecurity logs showing the IP address, the exact time of the unauthorized change, the original code versus the altered code, and an objective summary of the damage this could have caused. Then, I scheduled a meeting with my boss, Adrian, and the head of human resources. I presented the evidence calmly and factually. I did not frame it as a personal issue. I presented it for what it was, a serious and deliberate breach of corporate security and professional conduct. I said, an employee in a senior position actively attempted to sabotage a critical company project. This represents an immense risk to our business. The reaction was exactly what you would expect from a large corporation facing a clear internal threat. HR immediately opened a formal investigation. With the digital evidence, it was a simple, open and shut case. They called Tyler into a meeting with HR and the legal department. Apparently, he tried to deny it at first, but when they presented the logs that traced the action directly to his workstation, at the same time security cameras showed him in the building, his story fell apart. He was fired for cause. He was effectively escorted out by security that day, carrying his belongings in a cardboard box. Being fired for gross misconduct is an almost irreversible stain on any career. Naturally, the investigation led to Brooke. While there was no direct proof of her involvement in the sabotage, her public relationship with Tyler, the scandal on the day of my promotion, and the complaints she had been spreading about me creating a hostile work environment painted a clear picture. The conclusion was that she was part of a pattern of unprofessional behavior that contributed to a toxic work environment. She was not fired, but her punishment was almost worse. She received a final formal warning and was laterally transferred to another division, a bureaucratic backwater of the company that handles legacy accounts. The title of project manager remained, but the projects were meaningless. Her career progression at the company was permanently stalled. She was isolated, relegated to a dead-end job with no future, no prestige, and no influence. The power couple was finished. Tyler, unemployed and disgraced. Brooke, sidelined and humiliated. And as it always does, word got around. Tyler is still struggling to find a new job. The story of why he left our company has already circulated throughout the industry. Brooke lasted only another month in her new position before quietly resigning. She could not stand the daily humiliation of her downfall or the looks from former colleagues who knew the whole story. From what I hear, she moved out of the city. As for me, I am thriving. My department has never run more smoothly. We have successfully launched 2 major projects, and team morale is at an all-time high. The respect I get from colleagues does not come from loud speeches or empty charisma, but from consistent leadership and concrete results. My work speaks for me. Looking back, I realized Brooke was right about one thing. She said she needed an alpha, but her idea of what that means was completely wrong. She was drawn to the loudest, most ostentatious peacock in the room, mistaking bravado for strength. She did not understand that real strength, real leadership, is not about the noise you make, but about the foundations you build, the problems you solve, and the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you are competent and in control of your own destiny. She went looking for her alpha, and in the end, she found him. She just never realized he was the man she was leaving behind. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.